students, welcome to Tarunayas. Today we will be discussing daily current affairs of 28th of October 2022. So let's start with the first news of the day. The first news talks about the doctrine of res judicata, and the Supreme Court says that res judicata doctrine is fundamental to every well-regulated system of jurisprudence. Now we'll see what this doctrine of res judicata means. Basically, this term res judicata, it has been derived from a Latin phrase which means things has been judged. Now what happens, there are times when two parties, they have an issue and they go to the court. The court settles the matter, however they again appeal to the higher court. Right, so this is where the doctrine of res judicata applies. That means the matter has been decided, the things has been judged. That means it refers to the matter that has already been decided by another court between the same parties. All right, now when does this res judicata doctrine it applies? It applies when the litigant files the subsequent lawsuit on the same matter as decided by another court, and it is applicable both in civil and criminal cases. In order for res judicata to be applicable, there are four conditions given. The first condition is that it should be a judicially relevant, right? The matter should be judicially relevant. It should have been pronounced by the court. The tribunal should have the jurisdiction over the parties and the subject matter. So sometimes what happened it's not sometimes, in fact in majority of the cases in India, the order or judgment of the tribunal, the award of the tribunal can be challenged in the Supreme Court, right? So therefore, when this tribunal it gives an award or it passes a judgment in a certain matter or subject, it should have a jurisdiction over it. For example, the Central Administrative Tribunal. Let's take the example of CAT. CAT has jurisdiction over the public employee of the central government. So they have this jurisdiction, and when the tribunal, for example, this Article 262 talks about the tribunal establishment for the interstate river dispute. So it does have the jurisdiction over the subject and the parties. That is two states, two federal units. So this is the third condition, and the fourth condition is that the decision was finalized on the basis of the merits, right? So these are the four conditions under which the res judicata doctrine is applicable. Let's move on to the next news of the day. So the next news talks about that there were two bronze Chola, idols belonging to the Chola period. They were stolen from the Vishwanathan Swamy temple, which is in Kerala, in the Palakkad district, 50 years ago. Now Indian temples, they are known for idols, right? And Chola period is particularly known for the bronze sculpturing. Remember the idol of Nataraj, the dancing Shiva? It belongs to the Chola period, right? So these two idols, they were stolen, and now CID has traced these two idols. Now let's talk about what these two bronze idols were. The first bronze idol was the dancing Sambandar. So who's this Sambandar, dancing Sambandar? Basically this idol, it belongs to a 20th century child saint. He was a prodigy. Now what are prodigies? These are people who do a lot of things in a very young age. So child prodigy are those people who have a very high intellect and high acumen in a very small age, and they do big things in a very short span of their life. And in case of Sambandar, it was just 16 years. The legend says that after receiving the bowl of a milk from the goddess Uma, which is another name of the goddess Parvati, infant Sambandar, he devoted his entire life to the worship of Lord Shiva. And he lived just 16 years, till 16 years of age. This is the bronze idol. You can look at here. This is the bronze idol, and this is dancing Sambandar. According to the Shaivite tradition of Tamil, he has composed approximately 16,000 hymns. and of which only 4,000 stanzas have survived in the first 3 volumes of the Tirumurai. Alright. The next idol was of the Somasakanda. So this is Lord Shiva, this is goddess Uma or Parvati, and this is Somasakanda. In Tamil, in Tamil Nadu, it is the Skanda Somasakanda is also known as the Murugan, the chief deity. Alright, so it traces its origin to the 6th and 8th century Pallava period. Now, there has to be one thing has to be understood here, that this bronze idol belongs to the Chola period. However, this depiction of Lord Shiva, goddess Uma, and Somasakanda standing or dancing between them, it started in the Pallava period, 6th to 8th century. Alright, however, this idol belongs to the Chola period. It shows Shiva with 4 arms and Uma and Skanda dancing with ecstasy. This is what the depiction is. Let's talk a little about the imperial Cholas. They reigned from 850 to 1200 Common Era, and they represented the Tamil culture, and the temple architecture and the bronze sculpturing, it reached its zenith during the imperial Chola. Temple architecture, we have magnificent temples belonging to the Chola period. For example, the city of Gangaikonda Cholapuram, the temple of the Gangaikonda Cholapuram, the Raja Rajeshwar temple or Briddheshwar temple as it is known. And it was a very powerful kingdom, and it extended from southern India to Southeast Asia and also to the Malay Peninsula, Sri Lanka. They had a very efficient naval system too. Alvars and Nayars, they started composing hymns starting from the Pallava period, and it gained a prominence during the Chola period. Let's move on to the third news of the day. The third news talks about that how ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization, has achieved milestone in successfully testing the LVM3 rocket. Now, what is this LVM3 rocket? The earlier name of the LVM3 rocket is GSLV Mark III. Now, in order to end the dependence of India on this Ariane rocket, generally, in order to lift off the heavy mass, ISRO used this rocket. However, now ISRO wants to end this dependence, and ISRO wants to achieve its ambitious program. In order to aid the ambitious program designed by the ISRO, such as moon landing, deep space exploration and manned missions, the ISRO has to design this rocket and test it successfully. Right, so there was a successful testing of this rocket. Now let's talk a little about this rocket. It can carry 4 tons to the geosynchronous transfer orbit, 6 tons to the lower Earth orbit with lift-off mass of 640 tons. Now, why these rockets are heavy in nature? Why the rockets are heavy in nature? It is 640 tons. However, it can only deliver 4 tons to the geotransfer orbit and 6 tons to the lower Earth orbit. The size of the rocket is basically determined by the destination, that how far it has to go. It is determined by the fuel, whether there is a solid fuel, whether there is a liquid fuel or a cryogenic fuel. And the payload size, whether there is a small satellite, whether humans have to be transferred. If humans have to be transferred, PSLV is not going to work, right? So we need to have a heavy rocket like GSLV Mark III, Ariane rocket, Falcon rocket of SpaceX. So these are some of the heavy lifters that are currently present on Earth. PSLV, India's most prolific, and it is also known as the working horse of the ISRO. And soon LVM3 rocket, which is also be used for the launch of the Gaganyaan mission, is going to replace the PSLV rocket. The GSLV Mark II, meant for the lifting of the heavier communication satellite. Ariane 5, which belonged to the European Union, and it It is located in the French Guiana, which is in the southern America. The Long March, which is China's heaviest rocket, the space launch vehicle of the NASA, and the Falcon Heavy of the SpaceX, which is considered as the most powerful rocket for the commercial purposes. It has a lift-off mass of 1420 tons. However, it can deliver the payload of 64 tons to lower Earth orbit and 27 tons to geotransfer orbit, and this is considered as the most efficient. And Falcon Heavy is also the reusable by the SpaceX, the Elon Musk company. Now let's talk about the fourth news of the day, which is about the solar eclipse. On Tuesday, the city saw the solar eclipse. Now we'll see what this solar eclipse is. Now what happens? We have this Earth and there is a sun. Sun is stationary in nature, the heliocentric model, model as against the geocentric model, and this is Earth, which revolves around the sun. This is Moon, which revolves around the Earth. Now what happens during their revolution? These three, they align in a straight line. Now what happens? This Moon, it comes in front of the sun, and therefore the sun rays are not visible on the Earth for some time. As long as the Moon is in front of the sun, it blocks the sun rays and the sun is not visible by the Earth. Alright, so this is what is known as the solar eclipse. Solar means sun, related with the sun. Eclipse means to cover something, So solar eclipse. There are three types of solar eclipse. You can see in this diagram. There is total eclipse. Now total eclipse happens when the sun is completely blocked by the moon and nothing is visible. It looks something like this. Wait, I don't have that picture, but it looks something like this. There is only haziness around the sun. There is partial eclipse. Now partial eclipse happens as it can be seen here. The moon is not, if you look at here, the moon is not completely covering the sun. You can look in this picture. The moon is not completely covering the picture, and the small part of the sun, it appears. In annular, what happens in annular? So let me draw this diagram. This is Earth and this is Moon. Now Moon does not revolve around the Earth in a complete circle, right? It has an elliptical orbit. It's not a circular orbit, it is an elliptical orbit. So therefore, at certain instance, the Moon is farthest from the Earth. When the Moon is farthest from the Earth, that means what happens? And Sun is also farthest from the Moon. So what will happen? The Moon will cover the Sun in such a way that a ring will appear. That the Sun will appear as a ring. You can look in this diagram. This is annular eclipse. Annular eclipse, a ring is visible here because the Moon is farthest from the Earth. It is farthest from the Earth. Look at the distance here. In the diagram also the distance is visible. Alright, so these are the three types of the eclipse, and I have explained what eclipse is. Let's move on to the fifth news. So there has been quite a uproar about this movie Kantara. So because of this movie, one annual rite which is performed by the local people in order to worship the local deity has come into picture, which is known as the Two Chola. You can look at this diagram. This is the annual rites which is performed to worship the local deity. And Bhutas, they are worshipped in Karnataka. In the local tradition of Karnataka, the Bhutas are worshipped. And what are these Bhutas? You see that in order to protect the nature, the certain tribal people and there emerged nature worship. And Bhuta tradition of Karnataka is one part of it. there are certain rituals performed, as you can see here. This person is supposed to temporarily become God and resolve the local issues of the local people, resolve their problem, etc., etc., as a god would do. So this person who performs Bhuta Kola becomes god temporarily according to the local tradition. So this performer of Bhuta Kola is feared, venered, respected, and is supposed to have, in fact believed to have, answers to all the local problems. So this Kantara movie basically, it has depicted this local tradition. Some part of the movie talks about this, and the part of the movie also talks about that how the nature and the human, they are entangled together. There is interlinking, and none of the two can be separated from each other. And in fact, in India, there are certain traditions which also talks about that how the human is an integral part of the nature. Human is neither below the nature nor above the nature, rather an integral part of the nature. Local traditions, the sacred groves, etc., the nature worshippers, the Hornbill festival which is celebrated in Nagaland, all these depicts that how the human is entangled and connected with the nature's energy. Bhuta Kola is one such tradition. Also, although the rites, rituals are performed, but those rites, rituals, etc., etc., they are basically to generate a kind of ecstasy, so as to have a better mindset in order to resolve the problem. Now, this could be the scientific explanation for that, but this is what the tradition of Bhuta Kola is in Karnataka, and the local legends. Let's move on to the sixth news of the day. Now, there has been a recent spike observed in the sandalwood spike disease. Now, what is this sandalwood spike disease which is affecting the sandalwood trees? The disease was first reported in Kodagu in 1899, and it is caused by the phytoplasm of the bacteria, which is transmitted by a vector. Now, what happens because of this disease? 1 to 5% of the trees are lost every year, and the only option that the tree growers have is to cut down the portion of the tree, which reduces the production, which reduces the overall turnover of the tree production, and it is also the major reason for the decline in the production. Let's talk a little about the Indian sandalwood. Basically, Indian sandalwood is a dried deciduous forest species which is native to China, India, Indonesia, Australia, and Philippines, and it grows up to a height of 20 meter, and it is red in color. You can look here in this picture that it is red in color. It is mostly harvested for its timber. It has a vulnerable status in the IUCN Red List, and it is majorly grown in the area of Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Bihar, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and Madhya Pradesh. What are the uses of Chandan, as it is known in the local language? It is used for some ritual and the worship purpose. It is used in the soap, perfume, medicines, cosmetics, incense sticks, that is agarbatti. The oil, the Chandan oil, the sandalwood oil, has anti-inflammatory properties. Alright. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching Tarun IS. Have a nice day.